What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 19, Episode 10, Pledge of Allegiance. So, unfortunately, Chainsaw Guy is back. I don't know if you guys can hear it in the background. If so, I'm sorry. But, yeah, this episode, it's okay. You know, it did, at times, get a little bit mired in the whole, don't hate on people because of where they're from, blah, 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 that whole thing, which, again, I've talked about this in other shows and other reviews before, but I feel like that's kind of a given, but the problem with it is, especially in situations like this, it's not hating on him because of where he's from. There's already a ton of evidence against him, and then on top of that, you do have to consider the connections he has, not just because of the country he's from, but because of what's in that country. It's one of those, obviously don't just assume because of where he's from, but when all of the evidence is pointing towards him, it's kind of hard not to come to that conclusion. So I kind of hate the fact that it was almost set up at the end like, we're so sorry that we thought that about you. It's like, but you guys had reason to. It's not like you just said, oh, he's from Afghanistan, he has family in Afghanistan, well, he must be from the Taliban then. There's all of this evidence. He had access to dangerous stuff. He has an uncle who, I can't remember if they said the uncle is possibly part of the Taliban, maybe, but an uncle who lives there. The connection was there. And while I do think sometimes the team does jump to conclusions a little too quickly, and that's not even just this episode, every single episode is like they get focused on a theory, and it's almost like they just follow that theory all the way until eventually it gets disproven. And I'm thinking, I get it, you guys have an idea of what's going on, and so I understand why you're following it, but sometimes you do have to consider other possibilities. And this is a case where, the guy is obviously running for a reason, and I kind of figured the reason was going to be because he was scared because of his ancestry and stuff that people were going to assume, which, again, some people did. But I don't know, it did feel like the team was so set on he is obviously guilty, he is definitely guilty. And yes, the evidence did point to him, but it's still at some point you do have to bring him in to question him. It's not bringing him in because he's guilty, it's bringing him in because this is the best lead we have. We're going to look at this, but don't so focus in on this is obviously the answer that you miss all the clues around. Because I feel like that happens in a lot of episodes where we're so focused in on here, this is the answer. That the one coach that had the steroids, obviously he was selling them. Obviously he was using them. Well, you're so focused in on that, you didn't even consider the possibility that maybe he confiscated them from people. And that, in my mind, that was much, much more likely based on how everybody was talking about this coach than, oh, he's giving them to his athletes. But they were so focused in on it that that's where the conclusions led them until the very end, when it's like, oh, wait a minute, the dad was the one that was giving the son steroids and the coach took them? Well, yeah. You hadn't even possibly considered that as an option. Like, that is very narrow-minded. So I think it's something that, not even just for this episode, for every episode, I feel like they got to do a better job of showing that these characters are not so one-track mind. They have to be able to think outside the box. They have to be able to say, here's one possibility, but we can't just focus in on that. We also have to consider that there's other possibilities. Because, I don't know, it is starting to get to that point where I'm kind of annoyed with it. It's part of the formula. It's part of the formula for them to be so focused in on this that whenever it goes to this, it's almost like they expect the audience to be shocked and gasp. Like, oh my gosh, I thought it was him the whole time, but as it turns out, he was being framed. Well, yeah, most people are probably going to assume that. So having the main characters think that way does not suddenly make your audience go, oh, well, that must be the truth. We're on the outside looking in going, come on, guys. You have to consider the possibility that he's being framed. And they never do. So it is a little frustrating, and I do wish they wouldn't do that in the show so much. But they've also, I think, been doing it pretty much since the beginning. Very rarely does it feel like they explore all these different possibilities. And the thing is, I understand from the mindset of, if you focus in on this one possibility, you can follow it all the way to the end of the line and then find out whether or not that's the truth. That is a good way to approach it. But don't act like that is the only possibility. Like, that's what they do. They act like, here's the answer. This must be the case. And then when they find out it's not, they're like, wait, what? I don't believe it. How is that not the case? Well, did you really think that was going to be it? The first thing that you happened upon was going to be the answer? Sometimes it is, but very rarely. So, I don't know. It's one of those, I wish they would show more a process of, well, we eliminated this possibility, we eliminated that one, we eliminated that one, here's the truth. Instead of, this is the truth. No? Crap. All right, well, this is the truth. No? Crap. We're just never going to find the truth, are we? Do you not understand how solving cases works? But the wife being the guilty party, I wasn't fully convinced on her, to be honest. It was one of those, I had a suspicion, a slight suspicion, but it wasn't anything that I was going to sit here and go, yes, she is definitely the killer. But she was, among the two suspects that I had, I'm honestly surprised they didn't focus in on the Navy people that he worked with more, because I really thought the one guy that was, clearly supposed to represent the narrow-minded, they're not from our country, we'll get them out of here. Nobody from any other country should be here. I'm sure my ancestors all were born here, right? Yeah, there's so many people like that. There are probably a few, but somebody to work in the Navy to think like that, I kind of doubt that. I thought for sure he was going to be kind of like the red herring, and then the captain might be the one that killed him, but then they never went back to that, which also kind of increased my suspicions, because typically if we meet a character and then we don't see him for a lot of the episode, my mindset is, well, they'll probably come back. So I kind of thought that that's where it was going to go. So to find out it was actually the wife and she's actually Taliban, also kind of a nice little twist for me, because I was really expecting it to be just somebody who wanted to frame him because he's from Afghanistan, and be like, see, we got to worry about these guys because he's Taliban, right? I thought that's where it was going. So to find out that no, it's actually, she's part of the, or she's not Taliban, but she supports the Taliban. She supports the extremist Muslims. I thought that was a nice way to end it, because I don't know, sometimes these people do exist. And I think it's a little narrow-minded to say, we shouldn't suspect anybody from Afghanistan because, I guess we shouldn't assume that there are not terrorists in here trying to destroy our country, because they do exist. I think it's more so, don't assume that just everybody from Afghanistan is part of the Taliban, which, is a good message. But I'm glad they didn't make it where, we don't have to worry about the Taliban at all. See, this person, they weren't even a part of the Taliban. They just wanted to frame him as being part of them. I'm glad that it was not that type of message, because then it would feel like we're really trying to push that, hey, hatred on groups is wrong. There are some groups that they're bad, they're evil, they want to kill, they want to murder, they want to destroy. We need to also give that its time too. So, but yeah, it's kind of funny because I think I looked the actress up, because I was like, she really looks familiar, especially now that she's like flipped a little bit. I feel like I've seen this before, where she's pretending to be somebody that she is not. And I have. She was actually in an episode of Lie to Me where she was getting married to a guy, and turns out that she was not who she said she was. I don't know. It's kind of funny that they did this similar thing here. I don't think she was evil in that episode, though, of Lie to Me. I think she was just hiding a secret identity from the past because she wanted to get away from it. But yeah, all in all, it was a decent episode. I think the twist, it was good. It didn't catch me fully off guard, but it was not on the forefront of my mind. It was not my first guess. And in my opinion, if this show can do that, if this show can trick me to get me to assume it's going to be somebody else, and then it's actually a person that I hadn't really fully considered, that's good. It's not what I expect from the show at this point, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, but anyways, with all that being said, that's it for this episode. On to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 11, All Hands. This one was not bad. I think the problem is the setup for it was so good that I feel like the payoff didn't quite match what I had in mind. When you start this episode, all the intensity, the pilot getting shot, the team being pinned down on the boat, all of it's very intense and gets me excited to see what is going on. Why is this all happening? And so my mind starts racing with possibilities about what these guys could be doing, why they're here on this ship. The team on the ship is researching deep mineral deposits. Like, what does that have to do with anything? So to find out this was all just to steal an NCIS helicopter and then sell it, and apparently this is just what they do, is these three guys and that's it. They just sell stolen goods, most of the time stolen equipment. Is that really that interesting? Like when you start this episode and you see what they're doing, and we find out that the Navy, they don't really know what's going on. They're not hiding anything, but they aren't sure, that it's not matching their report, so they're trying to find out if there's something else going on. There's all of these possibilities, the Russian satellite thing, or not satellite, but the Russian intelligence that McGee finds from the NSA. I mean, you got all this stuff that they're building up towards. So I'm just waiting to see, what is it all leading to? What is all going on here? Thieves. I mean, okay. It's just, I think this is one of those, my expectations probably got a little too high based on the setup. I really thought this might even end up being something that possibly spills over in the next episode, maybe something to build up for the rest of the season. Maybe they're a part of some bigger organization type of thing. I don't know, my mind was really racing about what they could possibly be doing. So yeah, because of that, the payoff for me just did not land quite how I wanted it to, unfortunately. But everything in the episode was fine. Some of it was a little cheesy, obviously, with the dolly picture thing. That was kind of dumb, but it's fun to see this team working together, seeing Parker, how he's handling everything. I think it's fine for that side of things. I think they wrote the episode well. I'm a little disappointed with how small scale the ending turned out to be, but again, maybe that's just my own personal expectations being a little too high. Outside of that, the whole thing with McGee and the tech team, wasn't all that interesting. Because of everything he had been through, I kind of feel like they were being a little selfish, because he had been through a lot the last year, and obviously it was something that was important to them, but they could have easily come to him at some point, or even reminded him after everything he had been through. I mean, he was shot in the hospital. You're telling me they didn't think, he might have a lot on his mind. Let's see if he's still up for this. It felt kind of, I don't know, pot calling the kettle black a little bit. Like, oh, you didn't think about us. Well, you guys didn't think about him, clearly, if you didn't go check up on him in the hospital and see if he's okay and see if he even wants to do the whole DARPA competition. That's kind of stupid. And on the other tiny thing, and this may just be something that I don't know enough about to really make this sort of statement, but Star Trek fans, do they call themselves Trekkers? Because I've heard Trekkie before. Is that something that somebody outside the fandom calls the people in the fandom? Or, because I swear I've heard themselves call themselves Trekkies. So to hear Trekkers, it sounds like somebody who wants to make a Star Trek reference, but they don't really know the fandom, but they think they do. And so like, yeah, obviously they call themselves Trekkers, right? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they do call them, or maybe they're different sects of the fandom, and some call themselves Trekkers, some call themselves Trekkies. I don't know. I'm okay with Star Trek. I'm not a huge fan. I've watched some episodes, but I definitely wouldn't consider myself a part of the fandom. So if anybody watching is and can confirm with me on that it should be, McGee should have said Trekkies, and it's just the writers not doing their homework, that would be appreciated, because that was something that kind of made me pause for a minute and go, I've never heard them called Trekkers before. But anyways, that's about it for this episode, though. On to the final of these three. I'll see you there in a minute. And finally, episode 12, Fight or Flight. This one was, I guess I'm glad that we're kind of delving into Torres a little bit more, because it does kind of feel like he's been off ever since Gibbs left. And I'm glad we're kind of getting him talking a bit more and actually exploring that, instead of just having him, act all moody and broody and stuff on the side. I will say I'm not a huge fan of Sawyer. I don't remember if we've seen him before now, but really hope he's not going to be like one of those, trying to remember the name of the one guy. He ended up dying trying to protect Abby, the British guy. I hope we're not, he's not going to be a character like that, you know, where we'll see him in a few episodes here and there. If this is the only episode I see him in, I'll be perfectly fine with that, because he was not the most interesting character, kind of a jerk, and also basically the whole storyline was just building up this rivalry between him and Torres, and it just was not that interesting. It made them both look petty and childish, so I'd be perfectly fine if we just never saw Sawyer again after this. But the case itself was not all that interesting. You know, a little bit of intrigue with the DIA showing up and the missing eyeball and all of that, but quickly became very plain, especially after they figured out, oh, well, we know where the laptop went, and we know he went to search for it, so now we just got to find a way to get into this Fight Club thing. I don't know, it felt very simple, and it felt like what's going on with Torres maybe took a little bit too much of a main focus, and the case itself and the intrigue that they did build from that opening part kind of just took backseat. We didn't really focus on that anymore, so a little disappointed with that, but it wasn't too bad in that sense. I think everybody's reactions to what Torres is clearly going through, it's justified. It makes sense. I feel like they're all trying to do their best to get him to talk, but know who he is and know that trying to get him to talk will get him to not talk. So I think the way they handled it is probably about what I would expect. So I think all of that was fine. I do kind of wish, though, because I know obviously they're not going to do this because it doesn't make sense to have in the show, but there's a small part of me that really wanted, when Jimmy was talking to Torres and Torres asked him, wait, you're mad at your wife for dying? Really wanted Jimmy to be like, no, I'm mad at the writers for just deciding to kill her off because they wanted to make a COVID statement. Would have been really funny. Because I even looked it up. I'm like, I know they did that, but I forgot if I had looked this up before, whether something happened with the actress. No. From what I can tell, they just decided they wanted to kill off somebody because they wanted to make a statement about how dangerous all that stuff was and blah, blah, blah. And oh, it's so serious and so many people lost. Yep. That's the only reason you kill off one of the spouses of one of the main characters, who we didn't see much of anyway, but I mean, why'd you have to do that to Jimmy? You know? Like, it's just kind of silly, but yeah, all in all, I mean, it's an okay episode, nothing too special, nothing that got me super excited, but nothing that was really stupid either. So it was very bland in that sense. You know, it's one I'll probably forget in a few months after watching. So that's kind of all I got for it. So that's really it for me for these three. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these past 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews, and I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, hope you guys have a good day. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.